Hello and welcome everyone to another inventRight TV show. We have a very special episode for you. We have Tess LaChance. She is an inventRight student and she is on with her former coach Paul, and she's a very interesting story about licensing and venturing. You guys all need to hear this. We're going to keep it really real. We're going to throw up real quick a picture of her product right here, right now. James, if you could throw that up. All right, cool. Thank you. Tess, cool product.
Thanks.
Paul, thank you for helping Tess guide her through things. This story is a little playing out a little bit different though, isn't it?
It is.
It is. It is. Well, let's talk about licensing first, and then we'll go through Tess's story. Um, Tess, where were you before you came to InventRight with your ideas? Did you understand how everything worked?
Oh, not
That's a leading
remotely.
question, I know.
Not at all. Not at all. I was, everybody has some ideas or they want to invent things, but it stops there unless you have a program like InventRight offers to guide you in, taking your idea, getting it into the right hands even.
Were you were you kind of relieved that you could do this licensing thing rather than starting a business back then when you came on board with us? What did you think about, and did you even know licensing was an option before?
I didn't know all the ins and outs of licensing. It was, I assumed a lot, but I didn't really know. And I knowing that what I knew, what I learned in the program, it seemed like the easier route to take. Not that it's easy. I mean, there's some work involved, but it certainly is the path of least restriction,
Yeah,
least resistance for me. It was, yeah.
right. Paul, how did she do when she was a student?
She did good. Jumped in, went through the steps. She was quite advanced when she came in as far as having it developed out. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and so she had a lot of the materials we needed, but we got a good 1 cent benefit statement and a good sales sheet put together. And uh, again, since she was far along, we could go from there right into contacting companies.
Hmm. How did that go, Tess? How'd you feel about reaching out to companies?
I was intimidated at first, but I followed the instruction. And Paul was always helpful, and I reached out. I got a tremendous amount of feedback, all good. Just wasn't the right fit. So it didn't discourage me as much as I thought, oh, geez, it just may. But it didn't. I mean, I had a great coach, and it was a good learning curve. It really was.
Paul, she got feedback. That's not easy to do all the time. You can't always get that, but that's nice that she got it.
Yeah, and sometimes it's the approach, and sometimes it's the asking, because a lot of times companies don't just volunteer feedback. But
Yeah,
on the flip side, you also can't. Tess had the right approach. She didn't go back in saying, "Oh no, this is right for your company," and trying to school them on their business, because that
right.
never works.
Hmm.
Because as soon as you try and even insinuate that you're wanting them to justify their decision, they'll shut you down. But it's when
Right.
you say, hey, I really appreciate your time taking a look at it. What feedback can you give me? Is there anything in particular? And, you get various answers. Did you ask them questions like that, Tess?
I kept it pretty much. I would say, thank them for their time and ask them if there was anything that I could have done differently.
Hmm.
Just so that I can change my approach. But it was pretty much consistent when they all gave me feedback, and
Wow.
it just wasn't right for their company. I just thanked them and moved on.
You know
You
what
know.
you were doing right, Tess, is you gave them the impression that, look, I'm okay with your no,
Hmm.
but can you give me some feedback? You did that like a pro. You got people skills though, I can tell.
Oh, I don't know about that. I followed what my coach said to a T, and I felt confident in the instruction. It,
Mm-hmm.
it it was the more you know, the better you'll do.
Do
So
you
pay attention.
Do you feel like, even though you seem like a pretty together person to me. I mean, I can just tell.
Oh.
I'm not flattering you. I'm just I can tell. Um, but even though you're pretty together, do you feel like that would have been very intimidating on your own to not give feedback, to not would you have pushed as hard? And is it really important to push hard? Did you have to ask many times before they took a look at something, you know?
Um, what do you mean intimidated on my own without my guidance?
Yeah. Would you have reached out to as many companies? Would you
Oh,
have reached out in the right way? Would you have sent the right thing?
no, I wouldn't have. I the you know, it's really important to know and to be able to speak with somebody who's had the experience or who's educated in that whole environment from A to B, like every step,
Yeah.
to get comfortable. Because how you're going to approach people will also, how comfortable you are in that environment is important. So if you're unsure on anything, your coach is supposed to be there. And mine actually was. I would not have done any of it without that course.
Mm-hmm.
It would
Okay.
still be an idea in my desk somewhere.
And it would have, everything would have been a little uncertain. Like, well, maybe I do it like this, but I'm not sure. Having a coach telling you, no, for your product, this is the right thing to do. Is that beneficial?
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The opinions of your
Confidence.
coaches are everything. It builds your confidence, it gives you the direction. And in my case, it was a great experience. I wish it would have worked out in a licensing deal without having to take this other step. But I'm still confident that I'm going to get a licensing deal. And if not with this one, I'm so confident that I might have something else in the future.
Because
That
you learn the process now. So,
absolutely,
got it. Okay. Well,
absolutely the process.
let's
Yeah.
talk about where you are right now because you've decided to venture this, make it and sell it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I and Paul were talking a little bit. Um, it ain't easy,
Oh
is what
no.
you're saying. And so tell us, share with our audience what that's really like.
Well, you just assume that you're going to create the product. And now that you have a functioning prototype, go and have it produced. And all you got to do is get packaging. But no, there's a lot more. There's a lot more to it. And it's also like we've been at this 2 years, over 2 years, trying to get it on it like out and available to people. And the more we go in that area, the more we learn, the more we think, oh, we made a mistake here. We got to change this now. We got to change that now. It is a different game. If it was easy, everybody would do it. This is why no one's doing this. They should not, no, nobody's running to do this. I mean, it's not easy. Um,
So if somebody couldn't license their product and they're like, well, I'll just make it and sell it myself, I'll have it on the store shelves in 6 months. What would you say to that? Is that real?
that's so unlikely. I mean,
Okay.
it's a great thought, but it's not going to happen. And even if you were to go out and venture on your own, you got to dedicate, you're well into 2 years before you're going to start seeing some action. You might see it faster in a licensing deal. So if you're after, how much time you're going to put in and to your end result, licensing deal is the way to go all the way. Don't
Some
give up on it.
some
Keep going.
people think like, oh, because I tell them, I'm honest with them. Like when you do a licensing deal, it might be a year or more
Hmm.
before it hits the shelves because it takes a big company a while to change. And they're like, well, I could sell it myself. I could sell it tomorrow. And it's like, what, 50 units to at the street fair? Like, what are you talking about there? Or put it up on eBay or something? And so, how hard has that been to get distribution?
It's very difficult. The only thing, and we have 2 years in. Now, remember, you're also at the mercy of everybody that's involved in you getting there. So your
Oh,
packaging and all the mistakes there, all of those delays, just for a video, just for a good product video, just to give you an idea, it took 7 months to get something that worked. 7 months is a lot of downtime,
wow.
especially when you go all in financially. Trust me, those things can make or break your situation. And had we known that, because I've been partnered up with my cousin, actually, we're partners in this, and we just had somebody. I think our product was a little different, and it was hard for a company to see it in their catalog.
Hmm.
So, and some companies, the bigger ones, of course, they want to see what it's going to do in the market sometimes before they even look at you.
Hmm.
Trust me when I say, if you can do licensing and avoid the mess, because it's going to be a mess, as much as control as you can possibly have in it, there's going to be something, the ball gets dropped. And it might not be because of you, but it's going to delay. And never again would I want to do this.
Do you currently have inventory that's like sitting there? I mean, can you tell about the cost of keeping inventory and that whole
Um,
area?
the inventory, it's not knowing your numbers, not knowing how much you should get.
Hmm.
And there's, because, well, of course, as you know, we're not, everything's new. So I have inventory, lots of it. Like, to me, that's a lot. But unless it's selling, it's just stuff in your house. It's not even, there's, I thought it would be more, wow, I have inventory. And now I'm like, oh no, I got to get rid of
It's a
inventory.
money's going out and it
Yeah,
doesn't come back for a long time, and you got
yes.
that cash flow thing happening, and it can, for a lot of companies, even one product companies, it can sometimes be a couple $100,000 easy.
Expect to hemorrhage money.
Yeah.
If you're going to go in on your own venture, expect to hemorrhage money, because you're not going to see anything. And I know everybody has it. I had this idea, well, I'll get more of the cut.
Hmm.
A pie that's the size of an orange, not a big cut. So
Yeah.
numbers are everything in this.
Yeah, if you get a 20% profit margin or whatever, and it's a tiny little number of sales,
Right.
or you license to a big company and they're selling huge numbers and you're getting a 5 or 6% royalty or something,
Yeah.
all you need to do is run the numbers. So, we had a student, Nancy Tedeschi. She tried to license a product. She went out and ventured it. Was like, oh my God, like no, got it. And then she went and licensed it again. I don't think I'm not recommending that path. Now, Paul, you had mentioned too. You tried to license something, then you went and ventured it, and you said, I'm never doing that again. Tess is right in the midst of it, and we wish her great success with this, people. So make sure down below in the description, click on the link and buy it. I got mine right here. You guys need to get yours too. Great product. So please support Tess. But Paul, can you answer? Do people say that sometimes? Well, I couldn't license it, so I'll just venture it, and I'll make more money too. Is that true?
I hear that quite often. I mean, we all are optimists about our product, and so when we
Sure.
get a little bit of kickback or pushback on licensing, we're like, well, we know it'll sell. Well, the companies know it will sell too. They're not saying it won't sell. They're just saying, in their opinion, it won't sell enough compared to their other options.
Hmm.
And so when you say, oh, I'm going to venture it, and I'll ask you, Tess, to give me what your thought is. If you take the amount of time and money that you originally thought it would take to venture it, how many times would you have to multiply that to get the true number that it costs and the time that it took? What would you say?
Well,
Everybody has this number. Oh, I know if I do it, I'm going to be able to, I can put X amount of money into it. And I would say that it's a multiplier of probably at least 10.
yeah, it's, uh, see, being right in the heart of it right now,
Hmm.
it's one of those, it's hard to, first of all, I have to remain optimistic. I've been in it up until now. The hemorrhage of the funds is a terrible thing. I mean, to catch up, and the time where I can sell 10,000 units and still probably not come breaking even.
Yeah.
In those numbers, simply because, I mean, it's all the time. You're constantly thinking your business. It would have been so much nicer to put it in somebody else's hands and shake hands and say, all right, I'm on the sidelines now, and you get all the heavy lifting, and I'll just cheer you on. That is what a licensing deal is. It takes the heavy lifting off the individual who's come up with this fantastic idea or product.
Well, and we keep talking about the amount of money and the time, but what we haven't even talked about is all that time is for free. That's not even, the money isn't even giving you a wage.
Oh, come on, Paul. She's paying herself $500,000 a year. Come on.
That's, Yeah,
That's
we
what
can't think of
surprised
that when we're in it because we automatically assume, oh, in the end, I'm going to get paid. I, I'm at this point, I just want to recoup and recover what I've put in. That would be great. The fact that I've got over 2 years dedicated, in excess of 20 hours in a 24-hour day every day, that I will never see that back. And it's hard when you hear of other people with their normal 9 to 5s, and that looks pretty good right about now. And a licensing deal would have given me the best of both worlds. So yeah, the only advice I would give to anybody who's thinking of venturing is clearly you at some point have given up hope on licensing. So before you decide to take this step back, take a deep breath, and give it at least 4 more months in the licensing realm before you decide this, because you've got to just put more time in the licensing. This is going to take 2 years minimum from your life.
Or they could work on another product and then come back to it and resend it to everybody. We get people license stuff all the time that way. But yes. I really appreciate you sharing your experience. You're like in the eye of the storm right now, right? I mean, if that's the way to put it. And I'm glad that we can get on here and some people can support you by buying your product. I think that's great. But it's just real, and I really appreciate you for being really real, for how much time it takes. I mean, with licensing, you could spend 4 hours a week and have your day job and do stuff. Like you said, this is 20 hours a day, every day. You got no income coming in from other stuff because this is your everything. I mean, can you talk briefly about that? I mean, are you finding you're doing less things with your family, less other things, or is it all consuming? It doesn't have to be. You don't say that if it's not, but does it feel like it at least?
It is, and I can give you an example. We recently decided, you know what, we had set up to sell the product online, and I will do all the shipping, and I have every machine you can think of to package and ship in my home, because that's where I purchased, right? I want to be ready for all those great orders that haven't come in yet. So then we thought, geez, we just need a better platform. So let's go with the Amazon route. Now, sounds easy, everybody's doing it. But when you have a new product that doesn't have a UPC, and then you have the expense of trying to get the GTIN numbers so that it has its place and description. You can't sell on Amazon without that. So you have to go there. And then you got to look back at all of your advertising and your videos and make sure that you're not saying something that Amazon will not accept, because then you can't sell there. There's a lot of rules here in this, and it's going to take up your time. And that has taken up a lot of my time, especially when each individual option that our product has to have its own UPC. Something it did not cross our minds, even though we shop every day. But the product doesn't exist in this world. So every color change, lace option has to have its own UPC. And those cost money too.
Like I said, I think you're pretty together. You seem very organized to me. You do. If you're not, you can tell me, but you seem pretty organized. And so it's not about the product anymore. It's about running the business. It's about, I mean, it is about the product, but it's like there's so many little details, it sounds like, and it just kind of adds up and adds up and adds up. And then being on Amazon, you're just lost in a sea of other products. If you don't know how to play that game, it can be very difficult, right?
I think we could have enjoyed, my partner and I probably stand the same. We could have enjoyed the product much more had there hadn't been the workload associated with it for this venture. Had we been able to license it, we would have had a lot more joy watching other people bring it to market and then let it get out there. But you're so exhausted. By the time it does take off, can you really enjoy it to the degree you thought you would? Because it's take everything in you to get it there.
Yeah.
And 1%ers that, wow, it just, everything lines up. Hey, that's fluke. The real world, it doesn't. And it's going to take a lot of work to get it there. So spend more time in the licensing realm, because everything you think of that will be easier to venture out is incorrect. It was absolutely for me. And I was taught by Paul, do it this way, and these are why. I had all the answers, but I still I thought I was going to be that very slim 0.2% of
everybody does.
And yeah,
when it comes down to it, I would say just as a baseline, if you're going to venture, it's going to take at least $20,000 to $50,000 and literally hundreds of hours of your time, maybe
yep,
thousands of hours. And that's not exaggerating. That's just the cold hard truth. And then the next part about venturing is distribution is everything. That's why licensing works so good, is because you're going to somebody that already has distribution. When you're a one SKU company, or maybe multiple SKUs because you have some variations, that is very hard to get a company to take you in. They're just not very interested in such small companies that they can order one product from.
yeah.
And so your growth is extremely slow. Whereas if you license it with somebody that already has, they might have several hundred or several thousand products that company, each retailer can choose from, then it's a lot easier. Oh yeah, we'll get this, 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 and this, and we'll give you a try, and whatever sells through, then those flourish. And if yours happens to be one of those, then you're in good shape. But boy, venturing, it's first call them and ask them if they're open to one SKU products, and if they are, then they want to see samples. So you have to send them samples and wait for them to test them out, and it's slow, and then they put them in their one store, or maybe they're
Yeah.
a place that has 2 or 3 stores.
I mean, we had a company on our Bridging the Gap meeting that we bring on for our students, and her company had 5,000 products. You know, so when she calls on a retailer, they're listening, right? And they know they can deliver on time, they can give discounts, they can do this and that, and it's really hard for somebody like Tess to go, I got this one product. It's good though, it's really good. She's got more than one, but it's really really good. But well, this is what we wish for you, Tess. We wish that you kick some butt. You know, you're in the eye of the storm. You've already committed. You kick some butt. At any point, you could go back to licensing. You can now. Some people think, well, I need to venture it to show that there's a market and show there's interest. No, you don't need to do that to license. But if you can kick some butt and you do venture it, I think at any point or all along the way, you could be reaching out to companies to license it. And it sounds to me like that's definitely what your goal is, because you're like, I'm not doing this for 5 years.
Oh, no. Well, the thing is what we didn't, and I'm not, I'd like to say I'm intelligent. I know my partner is very intelligent. He's actually a robotics engineer, so he's up there and smarts. But what we have to learn now to do this is things that, even in a business, I would naturally hire somebody else. It's
Hmm.
like building a house and having to learn the concrete, the framing, the
Hmm.
you know, every aspect of the build. And I say that because I have a construction background, and it's not an easy. And you go to venture this, you don't want to have to learn, the ins and outs of Amazon, unless I'm going to be on the Amazon site running that. But I would have preferred to hire somebody who knows it already, because I have 1,000 other things I got to learn. And it's just one thing after another. And
It
when
could
you
get
start to
expensive.
hemorrhage,
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah.
You hemorrhage money so bad that you have to take it upon yourself to learn these new things and
And
skills
we
to
we
get
need
out.
to wrap up, but there's to me, my perception is there is an endless list of shysters that are wanting to take advantage of people that are trying to venture their products too. I mean, there's the invention promotion companies for people that are trying to license it, but there's a lot of people that, oh, I can help you sell on Amazon. Before you know it, you spent 20K and you got no results or something. There's a lot of those. Have you had any of those experiences yet, or you've been lucky enough to, have you just kept it tight and try to keep your budget low and do it all yourself?
We've tried to maintain a low budget, and
Yeah.
there's two of us working diligently at this. So, I'm lucky I've got a great partner, but for those people who are in alone, I can't even imagine how it would be with all the things that they're going to have to learn that they had no idea they would have to.
Hmm.
It's not even like running a business. I've run businesses before. It's not the same.
Hmm.
This is so not the same.
I could tell you're a business owner. I could tell that about you.
It's
Yeah.
it's it's I don't even think I was prepared to jump in this, but I never had that I want to venture on my own mentality. I definitely wanted to do the licensing thing,
Hmm.
and it's not too late. I'm
No,
still
not at
in
all.
the background, and
Yeah.
And like we said, sometimes after you've ventured it and proven it out, you have manufacturing dialed in, packaging, you have a good following. Sometimes it does make it to where a company will license it, whereas previously they wouldn't. And that was the case with me. I back and was able to license it pretty fast after I had proven sales. It took so much risk away. They're like, yeah, why not? Why wouldn't we do that? But it sells. We have a price point. We have manufacturing completely figured out. And so it made it easier. But in the licensing world, that is going to a step that isn't always successful, for one thing. So it's not like you can say, oh, if I venture it, then I will get a licensing deal.
No.
But
and that's why, Paul, that's why it's insanity to go, well, I'm just going to try to sell it myself and to prove there's a market, and then I'll license it, and they have no idea what they're saying. Tess is talking about it. You're talking 20-hour days. You're talking like crazy amounts of money. And because nobody's impressed with you selling 50 units. Nobody. That's actually the opposite. That's actually like, oh, and now you got to make excuses. Well, I was just testing.
Well, there's something else to consider. In the course there, we do the PPA, right?
Right.
And there's a time frame on that, right? Before you have to make a move, you have to either turn it into a patent. In a venturing situation, you have no choice. You're either going to lose the PPA or you have to pay over $5,000 and then some, because your first application in a patent's never going to take. You're always going to have to argue that, because I've got 3 or 4 patents already. So it's not the cheapest route to take. Spend all of your time pushing and learning through your coaches and learn how to license.
Yeah, you make a very good point, and I explain this to people. When you're licensing, privately showing it to companies is not public disclosure. So you can actually file that provisional again. You'll lose your original date, but you'll get another year. But you can't do that. Once you put your product out there, you're committed. You have to file a full utility patent when you're venturing.
That's right.
Once it's offered for sale is one of the disqualifiers.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's a known thing now. Whereas if you're in the background doing it, nobody knows about it until somebody bites on it for a licensing deal. So you're protected with that little blanket.
And it's not considered offering it for sale when you're trying to license it privately to a marketing manager to a company. That's not meeting that same expectation. That's not creating the same issue. But you throw it up on your website or whatever, you start that when you're on bar rule for ticking, you got to file a patent, otherwise you're going to lose it. So,
And that's a must, or you're going to lose it. You're going to lose that filing date. And that's when you don't even think of that. When you think I'm going to venture out, there's so many time frames that you got to meet or lose. So you're going to have to pay. So of course we had to, right?
Yeah.
And you don't think of it. It's just didn't cross my mind one time until it was, oh no. Oh,
well, I really appreciate you coming on, Tess, because so many people are like, well, I'll just venture it, and they have no idea. And I tell them, but to hear it from you is better, because they're hearing the real deal from you. You're in the eye of the storm right now, too.
Yeah, if I could snap my fingers, I'd rewind and save 60,000 for sure off the top, and hundreds of hours, and go about it differently.
But you're going to kick some butt here. I know you will.
Yeah.
In tandem, you can work on licensing it. You can venture this thing. You're getting it up. You're just ramping up now. So I want everybody to go down. I don't care if you hike or not. I don't care if you don't have shoelaces. Go down in the description below. Buy Tess's product.
Yes, and stay tuned on that. We got something special coming out for the hiker binder to go with it. That's going to blow you away.
Cool.
We'll be launching that together soon.
I want to give a plug there. Tess sent me some of those a long time ago when she was still my student, and I used them, and they are awesome. They are so awesome. Once you've had them, you're like, yeah, I don't want to go back.
Mm-hmm. Well,
for floppy laces, getting burrs in them, hiking along or walking. It's not just for hiking. You have them on my snow boots too. And, boy, it's just nice. You loosen it up with one finger. You tighten it back up with one finger. It's slick. It's a sweet product.
It is, and how being in construction, I can tell you, I've seen a lot of people on site with those loose laces and tripping, and they're carrying lumber, or it's a hazard. It's not
Yeah.
a good thing.
One
And
day,
there's been multiple lawsuits in the States over tripping and laces and stuff. So I thought,
Yeah,
one
that
day,
whole workplace
good trick.
safety thing, big market for that. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
let's hope.
Yeah, it's well then it's
I think it is, but
well
I
that's
use
why it's hard, because then you're like, oh, I got to go in this market and this market, and it's like and different distribution channels, maybe different retailers, and and you got to do them all. So yeah, if you guys are timid about calling 30 companies and maybe two or three people in each company, imagine how much calling Tess needs to do. It's insane, and how much
yeah.
work. It's nothing. So, keep it in perspective, folks. Licensing is a beautiful thing. It really is.
It's the path of least resistance and the cheaper path. It is, yeah, it's an inexpensive route to get to the same spot that I want to get to the more expensive way, apparently.
And I'll leave it with this. The people that respect licensing the most are the people that have tried to venture or have
Yeah,
ventured
yeah.
because they know the pain. And they're like, "Oh, yeah." And they're not like nitpicky with the potential licensee. They're like, "Yeah, thank you so much. Yes, they're really like, they got the great distribution. They know all the work they're going to be doing. They got it. They got their head on straight. But some people that are
Well,
new,
yeah,
they don't really know what the company's going to have to do,
they don't. And I will say this, and I was the student watching all the videos thinking, oh, they must be really tight with that student who's plugging the Invent Right way. And I will say this, your way works. I was a student. I loved everything I learned. It is the best way to approach something like this. If you can do it this way. No, I'm not being sponsored by them to say this. It's painful the other way, trust me.
Well, I don't know. You did bribe me. You did send me the laces. You did, So
Oh yes, so
maybe we
there's,
can consider that a bribe. I'm not. Anyway.
but yeah, I was listening to you when you told me, Paul, but I don't know if I was really listening because
Hmm.
you're the teacher, right? But you were actually the student at one point. So you have some credibility there for sure. But yeah, go with the licensing deal because there's things in there that you just don't know is going to come up.
Yeah. Well, thank
And
you. Thank you so much, Tess. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We're all about keeping it real here. So, Tess, thank you so much for sharing your
oh,
story.
you're welcome.
And I want to remind everybody to take care and keep inventing. We'll catch up with you guys next time. See ya. Bye.